Good afternoon. It's the afternoon session of today's Winchester City Council Planning Committee, Thursday the 24th of September. It's 2 o'clock. We have had a few IT problems this morning, and thank you very much to Dave, Nancy and Matthew, who've spent some of their lunch hour trying to sort it out for us. So hopefully that's all been addressed now. So Dave, if you'd like to do a roll call of who is here.
Yes, of course. Thank you and good afternoon, members. First of all, Councillor Clear.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
I'm here.
Councillor Gordon-Smith.
Present.
Councillor Laming.
Present.
Councillor McLean.
Present. Did you get that?
Have done now. Thank you. Councillor Raffel.
Present.
Councillor Bentote.
Present.
And Councillor Pearson.
Present.
So that's all members present for the afternoon session. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So we move on to the first business item of the afternoon, agenda item 11, 20/00701/FUL, replacement fire destroyed stables for private and commercial veterinary use at Lexington Ridge, Well Hill Paddock, Hambledon Road, Denmead. The case officer is Nicola Clayton. Good afternoon, Nicola.
Good afternoon. It's not actually Nikki, I'm afraid. It's Liz Marsden again, so a last minute substitute.
All right, it's Liz, is it?
It is, yes.
Can't see you. So the case officer this afternoon is Liz Marsden. And we've got the presentation on screen, which is good. So we've addressed some of the problems this morning. And when you're ready, Liz, we're ready for the presentation.
Good afternoon. The application, as stated, is for replacement stables to replace those that were fire damaged, and they will be used for private and commercial veterinary use. The site is located off Hambledon Road, and which is the main road there, and between a track and an existing manege. So the barn, which is an American style barn, which is described as having 2 rows of loose boxes in a larger building facing each other, which will house both the applicant's own horses and the client's horses generated by her veterinary practice. It's proposed to have 8 loose boxes within the barn, together with a feed room and tack room. The access from Hambledon Road is considered to be acceptable to take horse boxes and other vehicles that would be required. It is a double access, so cars can pass each other off the road within the site. This is the track that runs along the northern edge of the proposed site. The arrow shows where it's taken from, and the proposed stable barn will be in that location there. And another view of it. This is looking back towards Hambledon Road. So this barn will be here. This is the manege in this location, which is existing. Views of the site from various points. These containers, I understand, are to be removed. These are close to Hambledon Road, and that's a view of the manege. The barn itself is 5.5 metres to the top, and I think 3.7 metres to the ridge, to the eaves height. And the 8 loose boxes are shown here. There's 1 treatment room, feed room, and a tack room, and this is the main entrance. The proposal accords with the development plan and is therefore considered to be acceptable and is recommended for permission. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liz. Thank you for that. Right, so we've now come to public speaking. And do we have the objector, Robert Tutton, in the room?
Chair, can I comment on that? We don't, but Mr. Turner did say he was having some IT problems earlier in the week, and he sent me a written copy of his presentation that he was going to make.
Oh, I see. So
yes, just in case.
Are you going to read that out, or what? What is the procedure here?
If members wish, I can read it to the meeting, or I can actually share it because he has submitted it as a written script. Would you like me to read it?
Well, I would. Members, would you like this? The objectors.
Oh, excuse me, Chair. I think Mr. Tutton is actually coming into the meeting now. I'm just going to let him in.
Okay. This is not a straightforward day, is it, members? We get one thing sorted and then we're waiting for something else.
Chair, we have to let Mr. Tutton in. It's it says it's admitting him, but not overly quickly.
Didn't quite catch that, Dave. So is Mr. Tutton?
Yeah, we're just trying to let him into the meeting now.
Okay.
We're trying to admit.
We'll wait for him.
Davey's not on the list of participants.
No. Chair, we just discussed in the room. He was there. We just tried to admit him in, but we still can't see him in the list of participants at the meeting. So whether we've lost that connection to him, I'm not overly certain at the moment. Perhaps he might try again in a short while. But nonetheless, I do have his written statement. If you would like me to make a start of it.
I need some legal advice because what our protocol is, Fiona, is that normally we have objectors, but we haven't any supporters. So do we have to have the objector's statement now, or can we come back to it later?
Chair, in the circumstances, because there is no supporter who would normally speak last, it doesn't seem to me there's any problem why the parish council representative couldn't speak first, and if Mr. Tutton's able to join us afterwards, then it gives us another few minutes to try and resolve that, doesn't it? So
okay, right. So, parish council representative, Councillor Kevin Andreoli. Good afternoon. Are you here with us? Jolly good.
Good afternoon, Chair, if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you and see you.
Okay, thank you.
So you have 3 minutes and you can see the clock. So when you're ready. Please.
Okay, thank you. This application is for a stable block to replace a wooden structure which was lost as a result of an arson attack 18 months ago. There have been many comments on the veterinary aspects of this application, with concerns expressed that infectious animals will be housed in the stables, causing risk to other horses in neighbouring stables, including those stables using the same access track. Only a few hundred metres away is a field full of elderly and sick horses, for which this committee recently gave permission for a caravan to allow 24/7 healthcare for those animals. These are monitored by a groom, not a vet. The applicant is an equine vet and proposes housing some of her patients alongside her own 4 international competition horses. It seems to Denmead Parish Council that the applicant is not going to risk her own horses, let alone those of nearby stables. Demi Parish Council raises no objection to this application, but would like to see a condition applied such that the veterinary aspect of the application should cease if the stables are subsequently sold. Thank you. That's it from me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, sorry, it's just taken a while to get my fingers to the button. So yes, thank you. Do you have any questions for the Parish Council representative, Councillor Andreoli?
None on the screen at the moment.
We'll just wait a few seconds. So, Vice Chair?
No, we have none at the moment,
No.
Chair. Thank you.
So thank you very much. We will take your points on board. Thank you, Councillor Andreoli.
Thank you. I'll go back to silent.
If you'd like to take your camera off now, thank you. And so we've got to the point where have we got Mr. Totten in the room?
Chair, we thought we had him, but we've not been able to get him into the meeting.
So would you like to?
We are still trying. Chair, as said previously, after taking Fiona Sutherland's legal advice, would you wish me to read the script that Mr. Totten sent in to the meeting?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay. Mr. Totten says that he represents David Heppel and Simon Wilson. In my opinion, there are two main issues that act against this proposal: highway safety and visual impact. On my recent visit, I noted that the 30 miles per hour speed limit sign on Hambledon Road stands immediately to the north of the access drive. Southbound drivers would customarily slow down from the national speed limit or accelerate as they leave the 30 miles per hour limit heading north. I have little doubt that a traffic speed survey would reveal that the 85th percentile speed of vehicles past this site would confirm that 2 meters times 90 meters sight lines are inadequate, and that, brackets, even if they were acceptable, brackets, they are not achieved because hedgerows to the north and the south obstruct such visibility. A combination of private and veterinary clients' horses is bound to increase the traffic generation of this site. Without a traffic speed count to verify the situation, I am obliged to cast doubt on the Highway Authority's judgment that the access benefits from good visibility in both directions, meeting or exceeding the required national standards. Contrary to the officers, I believe that this proposal fails to be served by a safe and effective access that accords with highway requirements and contravenes local plan policy DM18. The next paragraph continues. On my visit, I also approached the site from the north along public footpath number 26 to appreciate the impression that one would gain of the proposed barn as one walks up the rise. As the proposed building would be 23.1 metres long, 3.7 metres in height to eaves and nearly 5.7 metres to its ridge, I came to the view that it would generate a dominant and overpowering impact on the skyline, notwithstanding that its lowest part would partially be screened by the hedgerow that follows the south side of the access drive. Contrary to officers, I believe that this proposal would harm the character and landscape of the area. Core strategy policy MTRA4 and detract from enjoyment of the countryside from footpath 26, LLP2 policy DM23. For these reasons, Chair, I believe that planning permission should be refused. Thank you. And that concludes Mr. Tutton's representation.
Thank you very much. Dave, you'll be pleased to know that we won't be asking you questions on it.
Thank you.
But was there anything there that any member of the committee didn't hear? Councillor Clementson, could I ask you to turn your video off? Oh, she's on the phone, so she can't probably hear me. Members, is there anything that was unclear to you in the reading of Mr. Tutton's statement?
No one is indicated, Chair.
No. Back to Liz. Liz, was there any extra things you wanted to say, having heard the public representation?
Just to say that we have had additional information that's been provided in respect of the potential concerns about health issues that were raised, and they do concur with the parish council in that the applicant is a vet herself and runs a practice. The horses that are brought, if they are required to be on site, are those that don't have stables. Otherwise, she would go to their stables and treat the horses there. So there is, and she wouldn't bring them onto site if her own horses were going to be affected in any way. There's also information about clinical waste, how that's disposed of, which is in accordance with best practice. And I think that's about it, really. But if there are any other things that haven't gone, I might have the information available. I've just picked it up, so I'm happy to try and answer any questions about it.
Yes, Councillor Andreoli from the Parish Council did request a personal permission. Could I have your views on that?
Well, the use of the site would actually be sui generis. So if someone wanted to use it for any other purpose, they would need a planning application. So
Okay.
it's not, it couldn't be suddenly turned into a hospital or anything because it doesn't fall with any particular use class.
Right, okay. I'm not sure whether I should have investigated that for. I'm not sure what the reason was for requesting a personal permission. Right.
Chair, I have
Chair?
two questions, yes. Councillor Pearson and Councillor Raphael.
Yes, we're moving on then to questions. And so questions on everything.
This is for Liz, Chair. There are questions.
Yes, yeah, well,
for
we're
Liz.
moving on to questions too, Liz.
Yeah.
So, sorry, it was Councillor Raphael and?
Councillor Pearson.
Oh, yes. So, Councillor Raphael, questions on anything committee. So, Councillor Raphael, your question.
Thank you, Chairman. Liz, this American stable has only doors from the access from the central aisle. Is that correct?
Yes, well, it's got doors to the outside as well, and sort of pedestrian doors.
Not according to the pictures. It's only little flaps for the horses to put their heads out of, not access to the stables.
Sorry, yes, you're right. I mean, there are accesses from the tack room and the feed room, and then the main access is.
So that's the main access is the entrance to the stables.
Yes, there are two.
If there's a horse in isolation, they have to go past all the stables, and I'm told that herpes and strangles are very infectious. So I can't support that at all with the way that's set out. Thank you.
Liz, do you have was there any advice on strangles, and which has been mentioned? It's quite a rare disease, I believe.
Well, as I say, I mean, there isn't. It's a very limited number of patients that would be supported by this. The applicant has her own, highly prized show horses, and they would be kept within the same unit. And I can't understand why anyone would choose to bring in a highly infectious horse if that was any possibility of infecting her own. I don't know anything about strangles in horses, I'm afraid, but she would be undertaking all of this within her professional code of best practice, and I don't I don't see that she would do that if there was a risk.
Thank you. Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, my question is about actually the size of the building that Mr. Tutton raised. I mean, how big is this building in relation to the one that was burnt down, which I understand was an arson offence? I'm familiar with the layout of these stables. I mean, it's quite typical in the United States, and certainly, you know, to have horses sometimes ill in this sort of stable is not that unusual over there. I know we have different standards here, but really I'm concerned at this stage the size of this building in relation to what was there previously. I mean, it looks to me the same sort of size that a farmer sometimes has through permitted development. This is equine land, so perhaps permitted development doesn't apply.
No, you don't have permitted development for equestrian for equestrian uses, but in terms of the size of the barn, it is a familiar site within agricultural areas. The design is similar to those of agricultural barns, and I don't think it's going to appear inappropriate in that location. And as you say, an agricultural barn could be constructed of this size or larger.
Thank you, Liz. That's very helpful.
Councillor McLean, Chair, please.
Councillor McLean.
Thank you. I was just going to support what Liz was saying. If I had expensive jumping horses, well, why would I bring an infected animal into the stables? It was just as a comment, not a question.
Okay.
I was supporting what Liz was saying.
Thank you.
That's what veterinaries do.
Thank you. Any further questions? We are in questions.
No, I have none indicated, Chair. Thank you.
So I think then, if there are no more questions, we're moving into debate. Any debate?
Not at the moment. I'm just checking.
I did go out. I'll start. I did go out and see the site. I just put my car, edged it into the access. It is a very wide access, and certainly, you know, there was a lot of traffic on the road, I have to say, in Hamilton Road, but I got in and out safely. I know there was some concern about that, obviously the stables are not there, but I couldn't, you know, it's quite well screened, the site, and so it's a facility which will facilitate her professional use of the site as well as her own personal horses, and as we've all said, she would not be putting her horses next to very sick animals, so I'm not sure that's a planning reason anyway, so I don't have a problem with this application, and I'm happy to approve it personally. We've still got Councillor Clementson on our cameras, but she's still on her phone. Any other contributions to debate?
Yes, Councillor Laming, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Laming.
Thank you very much, Chair. Looking at this, it is a reasonably large building, but on the other hand, it's serving a very good purpose, and equine vets are in short supply. Having seen these types of stables in the States quite a lot, I'm not a great fan of them, but I think that any responsible owner, let alone a vet with international horses, would not put something that's highly infectious in a place where their own horses, which cost a lot of money, are stable. So I have no reason to suppose that would be happening. Therefore, I support this application.
Thank you.
No more debate. No more, Chair.
So then we're moving towards the vote. This application has been recommended for approval. No extra conditions on the update sheet. And so Dave, you will now give the roll call for members to say how they will vote.
Yes, of course. Thank you. Councillor Clear.
4.
Councillor Evans.
4.
Councillor Gordon-Smith. Councillor Gordon-Smith. I will return to that one, Chair. Councillor Laming.
4.
Councillor McLean.
4.
Councillor Raphael.
Against.
Councillor Bentote.
4.
Councillor Pearson.
4.
Councillor Gordon-Smith.
I'm for.
So that's 7 members for and 1 against, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So that application has been approved. We now move on to the final business item of the afternoon. Agenda item 12, 20/01383.
Chair, excuse me, we were short of 1 member of the public to speak on the next item. That is the objector. We have Councillor Clements and Councillor Brooke in the meeting, and also Councillor Kevin Andreoli from the previous item. But we just need to get hold of the objector to get her to join, Sandra Wakefield, to join the meeting. So if we could just wait for a second.
Beg your pardon, I should have
We'll just try to get hold of her now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're obviously working at a much quicker pace this afternoon than our predictions. So the slight delay is because we have quite a few speakers who want to speak on item 12, and they're not all with us as yet. So we're just waiting for them to be let into the meeting room virtually.
Chairman, we have a Kirsty McLaren trying to get in. She's in the lobby. I don't know if she's one of the ones we're waiting for.
That's the person that's dealt with by the committee clerks.
Chair, just to update you, we've got one of the supporters just to come into the meeting. That was Kirsty. I think Councillor Pearson just mentioned that. We were still waiting for the objector, together with the applicant as well, Jane Coulter, to come, and also the county representative from Highways as well. We need to be in the meeting as well. So we've got a few calls just to make to get everybody present.
Yeah. Do we have a name of the county representative, the Highways representative?
Yeah, yes. When he comes into the meeting, it's a Mr. Tom Fisher, and he's the senior transport planner at from Transportation and Planning and Engineering at the county.
Thank you. Just to explain the delay to anyone who's listening, what time were we expecting this application to be heard?
We'd indicated 3 o'clock, Chair.
Oh, I see.
So we're half an hour early.
Are you in now? We're in, but there's no camera on us, I don't think. That's fine, as long as you can hear. Yeah, we can hear.
Oh.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Bye-bye. Hello.
Good afternoon. It's David Shaw here in the committee section at the City Council. Who's that, please?
Sandra Wakefield.
Hello, Sandra. If you would like to turn your microphone off for the moment, and then when we get the other participants into the meeting for this item, then the chair will invite you to put it back on again to contribute.
Lovely, thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I update members now? We've got the objector, Sandra Wakefield, in the meeting. Together again, say Mr. Andreoli, the two ward councillors, Clementson and Councillor Brooke, and also one of the agents for the applicant as well. That was Kirsty from Knightsgate UK, and I think we're just waiting now for Jane Ann Coulter, who is the applicant.
I didn't, Dave, there's a lot of interference. I didn't quite catch the name of the agent. I've got down Johnny Ribbons, but... Yes,
it's Johnny Ribbons, but I think we've got Kirsty from Knightsgate UK, who's joined the meeting. I think it was one of three to come into the meeting.
Kirsty?
I'm afraid I don't know. Perhaps Kirsty McLaren. Kirsty McLaren.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't like to be over familiar and call people Kirsty if they got a surname.
Hi there, it's Johnny Ribbons. I am actually using Kirsty's login on Teams, so just to confirm, it is me on Kirsty's account.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
So we're just waiting for Miss Coulter, Mrs. Coulter. Is that right? Apologies for the gap in sound. We are working ahead of schedule, and we surmise where we're going to get, and then we ask members of the public to come in 15 minutes before, because we don't like to keep people hanging around. But the consequence is we are working ahead of schedule, and so it's the committee who's waiting around rather than members of the public. But these people aren't late. You know, the one person we're waiting for is not late. It's just that we're working ahead of the predicted time. And this is unusual. We don't normally do this.
Councillor Evans?
Yes.
Yes, I have a further update. We've now got all parties in the meeting except for the actual applicant, Jane Ann Coulter, who informs us, though we've spoken to her on the telephone, she's going to be 5 minutes.
Okay, well, it's very important.
Before she joins the meeting.
Yes, it's very important that we have the applicant here.
Okay.
So I just sit down now, do I? Yeah. I'm not very good at all this stuff. I'd rather have gone there and spoken to a whole hall full of people rather than do it online.
Okay, you sit down.
Anne Coulter.
Hello, yes.
Well, welcome to the meeting. Yes, thank you for joining. If you
Right,
just
thank you. I'm glad.
turn your microphone off for a moment and camera.
Right.
And then we'll start the item.
Okay. How do I do that? Turn the camera and the microphone off for a moment. Sorry, just bear with me. I'm not very good at all this.
That's fine. Councillor Evans.
Yes, I've heard.
We've got all parties into the meeting now, so we've got the presentation poised to start.
Okay. So, good afternoon to all the public speakers. We're very pleased that we've now got a full complement of public speakers. The application, which is item number 12, is in front of us on the screen, and the case officer, Liz Marsden, is about to start her presentation. So when you're ready, Liz, please go ahead. Has everybody got their microphones off? Apart from me, I'm just about to turn mine off because there is some interference coming through. Yeah, it's better. Thank you. So Liz, when you're ready.
Thank you. As you say, the application is to vary a condition to enable the X distance at the visibility from 2.4 metres to 2 metres. The site leads to, the access leads to a newly developed site, which is referred to as the Haven, but that probably is not going to be the final name, but that was the original property. And as you can see, red line there. And the line along the road is the visibility. And that's just to show you the application in as being built. And this is the proposal from the development. The original application was for 5 units, and a further 2 have been added to the site. So there's a total of 7 dwellings will be accessed off this access onto Hambledon Road. It's a bit complicated, but this shows you the difference between the 2 metre and the 2.4 metre lines of sight. Essentially, it is the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit along this part of the road, and therefore the requirement, the standard was generally for 2.4 metres, or the condition initially was for 2.4 metres times 43 metres along the road. The X distance is between the edge of the road and the point at which you mark that. So that was the dotted line is shown there at the 2 metres, and I think initially you can see what it was like with the 2.4 metres, which cut through some of the adjacent hedgerow, or there. That was shown on the original transport statement. So that was 2.4 metres back from the edge of the road. The photos of the site, these were taken just from the south of the access, which you can see there, looking northwards along the road. And this was taken just from the adjacent site, where the wall has been reduced in height in order to enable the actual full 2.4 metres back from the edge of the road. So the primary difference is this to this application is to the north, where it's possible to achieve 2 metres. And this is the view looking northward from the roadside and south from the roadside. This was within X distance of 2 metres. I paced them, so forgive me if they're not 100% accurate. I didn't have a tape measure. And So that's 2 metres and that's 2.4 metres. So you can see the difference that makes. And again, looking south, it's a bit more difficult to tell because there were still hoardings up when I took the photos. So currently the access to the site for construction traffic has been very limited by the presence of these hoardings. So this is the line of the existing hedgerow, and here you can see there's a wire mesh fence located well within the hedgerow, which may or may not be the original boundary, and that's one of the 30 miles an hour speed limit signs, which is shown sort of located partially obscured by the hedgerow. The recommendation is to permit. It's considered that the X distance, the reduced X distance, has been comprehensively scrutinised and will not require a departure from standards or result in an increased risk to highway safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. So we will move to public speaking. I'll just wait for the screen to be set up for the speakers. Thank you. And the first public speaker we have is an objector, Sandra Wakefield. Good afternoon, Ms. Wakefield.
Right, I'd just like to start by reading the actual application, which says adjustment to condition 9 following consultation with Hampshire County Council and the assigned Knightsgates employees civil engineers. I just want to point out that it's not Hampshire County Council civil engineers, but Knightsgates employee, to avoid any conflicts with neighbouring land. Proposal to reduce the X distance for visibility display at the access to Hambledon Road to 2 metres. There's nothing about safety of the public or road users. It seems to be generally because Knightsgate do not want to enter a condition which may cost them financially. They have known for over 18 months, as have WCC Planning, Mr. Parker, because over this past year we have offered many meetings, Knightsgate ignoring us. One wonders why HCC Highways are so keen to assist this application. HCC Highway statement applies to their own HCC technical guidance notes, TG3, yet several of their assessments are flawed, inaccurate and misleading. I wish to explain why I think this is so. Liz Marston has taken her report influenced by these. First one is HCC's TG3 372, says in urban residential streets where a footway is present, it is acceptable to reduce the X distance to 2 metres in order to achieve the Y distance visibility unless a cycling footway, etc., etc. Everything I have looked up as a resident of Denmead states this location is rural, even the post office postcode. Yet this section has been used in HCC's statement, therefore wrong. The haven is neither urban or residential, even by Knightsgate's selling website it states within the rural setting of Denmead. Therefore that technical note cannot be applied. 2. Existing hedges vegetation should be taken into account when deciding visibility displays. HCC TG3 section 334 states existing hedges stroke vegetation should be cut back beyond the visibility display to allow for growth to at least 1 metre. This has not been addressed by Knightsgate's Bright Plan Limited on their drawing, and HCC have stated they will cut this hedge back accordingly. But as it is in our ownership, they cannot cut it back beyond the pavement edge. They have never cut our hedge in 30 years and therefore will not be allowing for this 1 metre growth without permission from ourselves. It is as far back from the pavement now as
Miss Wakefield, could you just finish your sentence, because you're 3
Yes, they will not be touching this hedge without permission. Since when it has been HCC who satisfy the WCC planning that condition 9 visibility display will be met by their actions.
Thank you for coming along. There could be questions for you from members of the committee.
Sure.
You don't need, Mr. Wakefield, excuse me, but you don't need to speak quite so loud.
Oh,
because we can hear you perfectly.
I do tend to shout, I'm sorry.
Vice Chairman, any questions for Mrs. Wakefield?
Not at present, Chair, no.
No. We'll just wait a few minutes. We have a system where you have to put the indication on chat. We'll just wait a few minutes. Vice Chair, no indications?
No, nothing there, Chair, thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much, Mr. Wakefield. If you could, yes, you haven't got your camera on, so that's fine. And if you could turn your microphone off as well, that would be great. Thank you. And please do stay with us to the end of the afternoon. And thank you for your contribution. All right, we move on now to the Parish Council representative, Councillor Kevin Andreoli. Good afternoon again.
Good afternoon again, Chair.
And you have 3 minutes, and when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. Denmead Parish Council has concerns over this proposal. The proposal to reduce the visibility displays at the access onto Hambledon Road from 2.4 metres to 2 metres would have a dangerous impact on road users and pedestrians. This proposal is in contravention of policy DM17 within the Winchester District Local Plan Part 2, which states that appropriate provision must be made for access to a development site in accordance with any highways requirements on the grounds of safety. Transport statistics carried out in 2018 showed that Hambledon Road, which is the main arterial route through Denmead, has a daily vehicle flow approaching 4,000. Based on this information, it states that the planning regulations, the distance for visibility displays should therefore be no less than 2.4 metres. Denmead Speedwatch has also confirmed that vehicles regularly drive in excess of the speed limit of 30 miles an hour, contributing to the Parish Council's concern for road safety in respect of the proposal. Manual for Streets suggests 2 metres may be considered in some very lightly trafficked low speed situations. This is not a quiet residential street, but is one of the main routes from Waterlooville to Bishop's Waltham and Winchester. Buses and lorries struggle to pass at this point on the road, and traffic flow is high and fast. A reduction to 2 metres for the visibility display will mean vehicles exiting from this 7-dwelling development will encroach across the only pavement and into the roadway. The developer has apparently made no attempt to meet the 2.4 metre display by negotiating with the landowner of the hedge which causes the problem. And Denmead Parish Council requests that this application is rejected in the cause of road safety. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Vice Chairman, any questions for Councillor Andreoli?
Nothing indicated at present, Chair.
We'll just wait a few minutes, Councillor, just to see whether people have put something on chat that they want to speak. Nothing, Vice Chair?
Yeah, Councillor Pearson, Chair.
Oh, right, Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Andreoli, looking at the Google photographs, suggests these houses are already in place. So where do we go from here if we do not allow for this change in this condition?
Well, the houses are they've had permission to build the houses. They were given permission provided they gave the 2.4 meters visibility display. This is a very busy, quite narrow road in on the outskirts of Denmead, and as far as we can see, that you know, they are trying to reduce the visibility display without actually knowing they've had to do this for 18 months or so. And you've heard from the landowner who owns the hedge, who said they've never approached them to try and get it cut back. We believe if they go to 2 meters, then cars coming out of that development will actually be encroaching on the pavement, if not the actual road, before they can see clearly up and down the road.
So if we don't grant this, those houses being there, we are creating a highways issue. Is that what you're saying?
Well, would be making the developer do what they should have done in the first place and sorted their display and visibility.
It sounds like a civil matter rather than a planning one. However,
no more questions, Chair.
Chairman, you're muted.
Are you muted, Chair?
Sorry. Councillor Pearson, I was just saying we do have Mr. Tom Fisher from the Hampshire County Council, who's the senior transport planner. We'll ask him questions later. And thank you, Councillor Andreoli, for coming along for 2 applications today. And we do appreciate that. And if you could turn your camera off and your microphone.
Thank you, Chair and Committee.
Thank you. Okay, so we come to ward councillors. I don't mind who wants to go first, but the first name I have is Councillor Clementson. Are you going first?
Thank you, Councillor, and good afternoon to committee.
Good afternoon. Have 5 minutes, Councillor Clementson.
Thank you.
You can put your camera on if you want.
Oh, okay, I will. All right, can you see me now? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Well, good afternoon to you all, and thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of this application. Whilst I accept that the role of the Planning Committee is to decide an application based on planning law, the situation relating to the Haven development has been prolonged and is somewhat unique. In my humble opinion, it deserves favourable consideration and possibly a decision outside of the parameters of the submitted and approved plans for this site. I refute some of the comments made as quite incorrect. I am no expert, but I concur with the findings of the Hampshire County Council and Bright Plan Limited, the transport planning and infrastructure design consultants, that the setback distance could be reduced from 2.4 to 2 metres without an impact on road safety. I draw this conclusion knowing the site as I do and the road onto which it egresses. For the benefit of those who do not know it, the site is halfway up the hill at the end of a row of properties which were shown on the photographs and at the edge of the village. And although it is a busy B road, it is not excessively so. As with all the roads in and around Denmead, speed is always an issue, but as far as I'm aware, there have never been any accidents along this stretch of road. You've been shown several photographs which show the road. As you can see, it is not heavily pedestrianised, as there are very few houses beyond the Haven to the north. Many people have objected to this application based on a dip in the road, of which I am unaware, and the speed at which people exceed 30-mile-an-hour limit. I have been involved with issues on this site since October 2019 and have watched its completion being delayed by a very wet winter, unforeseen drainage problems and the COVID lockdown. My first introduction to site was at the request of Mr. and Mrs. Wakefield, the adjacent landowner, who asked me to help with Knightsgate's failure to comply with the visibility display requirements. They wanted Knightsgate to negotiate for permission to cut back what they perceived to be their hedge in order that the approved sightlines could be met. When I asked outright by myself, Mr. Wakefield said he was looking for financial resolution to allow Knightsgate to cut back the hedge. A meeting was arranged at my request with Knightsgate, Winchester City Council, Hampshire County Council and Mr. and Mrs. Wakefield to try to resolve their concerns, and at that time it was pointed out to them that their hedge had not been maintained and had encroached onto the highway land. A chain link fence, presumed to be at their boundary fence, is clearly visible in the middle of the hedge. The 30-mile-an-hour speed limit has, I understand, also been relocated as it was lost in the hedge. After the meeting, I received a letter from Mr. and Mrs. Wakefield thanking me for arranging the meeting, and from that I had assumed that they had accepted that the hedge could be cut back to the correct boundary, thus enabling the agreed 2.4 sightline. There was then the issue relating to the natural runoff from the pond in Mr. Wakefield's land and from the highway, which had historically drained through the site. The development had caused flooding in both Mr. Wakefield's field and Oakwell, another adjacent property. This was resolved by considerable additional drainage being installed by Natesgate at their own expense and as a goodwill gesture to both adjacent landowners to overcome any problems. During this time, there had been no further mention of the visibility splay until the new homes had become ready for occupation. One of those homes, I understand, was of interest to Mr. and Mrs. Wakefield, and who intended to purchase it and allow the hedge to be cut back as part of the negotiations. Whilst I know this is not relevant to the planning consideration, I believe there is a moral consideration here and would ask the committee to consider the very dire financial situation that these delays, and this delay in particular, is causing the purchasers of the new properties at the Haven. I have been asked to plead on behalf of 2 residents for common sense to prevail in a situation they believe to be prompted by greed rather than safety. In their own words, we are a self-build within this development with 85% building costs paid from our retirement saving and loans. With our home of 33 years sold, we will be homeless next week. We are devastated. We are in favour of improving road safety, but this will make no difference to the speeding along this road. I believe
Councillor Clementson, your time is up, so if you'd like to say your last sentence.
I will finish that by saying I think that there is an ulterior motive and that there is a visibility splay which has become a ransom strip with only one person to gain at the expense, stress and time of wasting others. And I would therefore implore the committee to decide in favour of this application.
Thank you very much, Councillor Clementson. There might be questions for you. Vice Chair, any questions for Councillor Clementson?
Not at the present time, Chair.
Just wait a few minutes just to see whether anyone indicates that on chat. I think that was quite a comprehensive statement, so probably not.
No, nothing at present.
No.
Chair.
So thank you very much, Councillor Clementson. If you'd like to mute and turn your video off again, thank you. And then we'll return to the other ward councillor, Councillor Brooke. Good afternoon. Councillor Brooke, are you there?
Apologies, my screen froze and I
That's
couldn't
okay.
do anything, so I had to close it and reopen it.
Yeah, good afternoon. When you're ready, you have 5 minutes.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. I'm ready. I object to this application, and I'm speaking in my capacity as both ward councillor, and I am also referencing some of Mr. Wakefield's objections. The previous statement was incredibly emotive, and the planning application should be decided purely on the facts. I first became involved with this application 4 years ago when I was contacted by Mr. Wakefield as the previous owners were refusing to consider their options regarding the 2.4 metre visibility splay. At that time, Winchester City Council sent a reminder letter about the compliance needing of the 2.4 metres, and they needed to comply to this in order for that building to meet the planning permission that had been given. The public safety is at risk from this. So the Manual for Streets, paragraph 7.7.7 states that a minimum figure of 2 metres may be considered in some very lightly trafficked and low speed situations. But using this value will mean that the front of some vehicles will protrude slightly onto the running carriageway. The 0.4 metre intrusion would mean at least 17% of the running carriageway would be impeded. The Hambledon Road on which this sits is on a hill. The cars coming down it, as Councillor Andreoli mentioned, are regularly in excess of the 30 mph speed limit, and that's why Speedwatch sets up there regularly. One of the previous studies on there estimated that there were 3,800 vehicles per day, so this is certainly not lightly trafficked and not a quiet country lane. Mr. Wakefield has asked me why this is being rushed through. Why is it being pushed through for emotive reasons? The developers are confident that and they've been asking Winchester Council all along about the 2.4 metre visibility display and have been told that the developers are confident that it could be achieved. Mr. Wakefield informed me that the planning department was asked by HCC Highway Manager Southwest that the developers need to discuss with Wakefield's a solution in order to achieve the visibility displays, but this was not happened despite many approaches from Mr. Wakefield to Knightsgate. Eventually they came back to him once this planning application was agreed to be heard by committee. Mr. Wakefield is also concerned that causing a long-term safety problem for a short-term solution is not the answer. They have knowingly shirked their responsibility to this, and they themselves have caused this issue to now come to light and affect financially the residents who were due to move in there. Existing trees and vegetation would need to be removed or cut back in order to achieve the visibility display, and they've ignored any negotiations with the Wakefields on this until this moment where they've submitted this. It almost seems as though they purposely did it because they thought they'd get away with it once the houses were built. The traffic along the Hambledon Road includes tractors, buses, articulated lorries, horses, carts and regular herding of cows. This is certainly not a typical residential road. The width of the road is 5.2 metres and a bus and lorry within the manual for streets down to having a width of 3 metres. So quite often there's difficulty passing on this road already without a limited visibility display. The planning application comments that HCC supports a reduction to 2 metres, which is usually permitted in urban residential streets. Denmead is a rural settlement, not urban residential. There are 6,736 people. The threshold for an urban settlement is in excess of 10,000. Below this figure is rural. The area of Denmead has a very low housing density for it to be considered residential. There is no street lighting for at least 0.5 miles in either direction and only a single footpath, so this road's extremely dark at night. A residential area must have a road of at least 5.5 metres without traffic calming measures, according to the streets manual. There were 16 households which objected to this planning application, and they were mostly in the vicinity of the Haven, as you'd expect. But the Parish Council also objected strongly. We all have local knowledge of this road. We all have local knowledge of the exact location of the Haven and the damage and danger that this will cause if you reduce this visibility along this road, particularly if the hedge should grow out any further. The residents feel the only reason for this planning application is to benefit Knightsgate and not for the public, the road users at large, and that this would put them all at risk. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you letting me speak today.
Thank you very much. Perfect timing.
Thank you.
And there might be questions for you, as you know. So, Vice Chair, any questions for Councillor Book?
Councillor Laming, please, Chair.
Councillor Laming.
Councillor Brooke, have you approached Hampshire County Council about having the hedge trimmed back to the boundary line?
No, they have been out, and they, as previously stated in other speakers, they have said that they would cut it back, but it has never been done. And the owners, Mr. and Miss Wakefield, have always been responsible for maintenance of that hedge. Yes, they are responsible, but there are occasions when it's outgrown over the boundary where you're allowed to cut it back to the boundary. And I would have thought that's a simple solution for everybody. No, because the cut back to the boundary does not allow the visibility still with the 0.4 metre less, in my opinion. Thank you. That was the answer I was just waiting for.
No more at the present time, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Book. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
do stay with us. Right, so case officer Liz, anything from what you've heard that you'd like to comment on? And then I'm going to go to Mr. Fisher, who I hope is with us.
Chair, excuse me, Chair, we do have some supporters to speak on this item.
I'm so sorry.
We have the supporters to make their public representation.
Oh yes, we do. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Ms. Coulter and Ms. McLaren and Ms. Ribbons, if you are speaking. So sorry, my error. So we come to the supporters. Ms. Coulter and either Mr. Ribbons or Mrs. McLaren. Are you all here?
Yep, I'm here. It's Johnny from Nightscape.
If you'd like to you can put your cameras on if you wish. Yeah. And
Hi there. Are we all good? Yeah.
You have 3 minutes, and
Okay.
it's up to you how you share that 3 minutes. And in
No
a
problem
minute,
at all.
the clock will come on the screen, and then when you're ready, you can start.
Thank you very much. Hi there, I'm Johnny Ribbons and I'm the design manager at Nightscape UK Limited, and I'm speaking in support of the application. Thank you to those who have commented so far. The reasons, firstly, that we made an application to reduce the X value in the visibility display was as follows. Firstly, we've obviously had backing from Highways Authority, the ultimate responsibility for road safety. They've raised no objections to either our first and subsequent proposals for the visibility displays at this development. We amended the distance because of the hedgerow which abuts Ant Hill Farm has been allowed to grow, encroaching on previously achieved hedge is disputed. We've done many plans and overlays to show this. Some of these are provided in Winchester City Council's report to the committee. However, we've been constantly challenged by Mr and Mrs Wakefield, and no evidence of such has been provided. The previous location of the 30-mile-an-hour speed sign is obscured by the hedge, shows the true picture. Our plans show the area of the visibility display when it was 2.4 metres falls outside of any land owned by Ant Hill Farm. To assist, there is a fence line running through the centre of the hedgerow, which under usual standards denotes the boundary of legal ownership. Mr and Mrs Wakefield dispute the area belongs to Highways Authority and claim the entire hedge within their ownership, but refuse to allow us to cut back and or control at our own expense. We were advised in writing that we now needed to acquire the visibility display. These requests have always been met at a threat of pursuit of criminal damage charges. Recently, we received an email from Mrs Wakefield in August and
It's Mr. Ribbons, your voice seems
application
to
which
have frozen. So we haven't really heard the last
stated
sentence.
what they want and claim, and this is the reason why they repeated.
Yeah, there is a problem
Hello?
over the sound.
Hello?
There is a problem over the sound, Mr. Ribbons. So if we added on a bit more
Hello?
time, Dave, could you just repeat the last sentence that you said? The last 2 sentences, probably.
Where did you?
Sarah, can I just ask that perhaps the public speaker could turn his camera off? That might just help on the audio.
Yeah. Yes, if you could turn your camera off, and then we'll allow you the time to finish what you're saying, because we just didn't hear you.
Where did it cut out?
I don't know.
I heard, if I may, Chair, I heard criminal prosecution, and then it broke up.
Okay.
Right, no problem at all. Okay. Recently, we received an email from Mr and Mrs Wakefield in August with respect to the revised application, which stated, withdraw your application and we can start negotiations. Mr and Mrs Wakefield have never suggested what they want from and clearly feel there is some monetary value attached to this claim. And this is the real reason why we have repeatedly raised the issue of ownership of the hedge, not the safety issues. The safety concerns in relation to the reduction of visibility displays have been largely dealt with in the letter dated the 4th of September from Jenny Jones of Hampshire County Council. The letter clearly states that HCC confirmed the 2 metres is compliant and they have no objection to the revised displays. Safety concerns have been raised for years along Hambledon Road, and that more appropriate speed or traffic calming measures would be welcomed. We advise HCC are not aware of any accidents of this stretch of road to date. We have agreed sales on all plots of the Haven in good faith. The modest development of 2 to 4 bedroom houses, and our buyers very much want to move into their new homes and now face potential financial loss, hardship and incredible stress, which is worsened by the current situation we are all in. Moving house in itself is a stressful time without further threats of uncertainty. Plot 3 being bought by a young couple who are expecting their first baby in October, they are understandably hugely upset by all. All of our buyers are aware of the committee meeting today and are of course hoping for a positive outcome and are baffled by this turn of events.
Okay.
In summary, there's been no objections by HCC Highways. Can I? Sorry.
If you could just finish your sentence.
Yeah, of course. Yep. There have been no objections by HCC Highways or either visibility displays. Both meet clearly established guidelines. There are worries. Hambledon Road is a separate issue, and on the road is a separate issue. The report from the case officer, Liz Marston, is comprehensive and not only confirms display is achievable, but actually improves the view both up and down Hambledon Road. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for coming along. The difficulty we had was that you kept cutting out, so we were missing vital bits of the of your sentence.
I'm happy
I think we've got what you wanted to tell us. So there could be questions for you from members of the committee. Vice Chair, any questions for Mr. Ribbons? Or we've got
not at the moment, Chair.
No,
not at the moment.
Just wait a few minutes, just in case anyone wants to put a question in.
No problem.
Nothing, Vice Chair?
No, nothing, Chair. Thank you.
So thank you very much.
Chair. Councillor Evans, excuse me, I don't know whether the public speaker that was just speaking in support, who we couldn't hear, left any time for the other public speaker in support, and I don't know whether the lady, Jane Ann Coulter, would wish to add anything.
Well, I think that the supporter certainly had 5 minutes of contribution, and I heard it, but what are you suggesting, Dave?
No, I just wondered if it was the case where the other public supporter wouldn't wish it to say anything, but I would agree that it probably did exceed the 3 minutes in any case.
Okay, well, we want to be seen to be fair and reasonable, but also equitable. Ms. Coulter, is there anything you wish to say that you feel hasn't been said to us? Are you there, Ms. Coulter?
She's definitely on the list. Sorry, I thought you'd muted it.
She probably can't unmute her microphone.
Okay. Well, Dave, I'm in your hands. I don't think it because we are not hearing from.
Hello. Hello. Sorry, I couldn't unmute the computer. Councillor Clementson actually said really how I feel, and so that's fine. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you.
So you're happy that we understand your point of view?
Well, yes, we're quite devastated by the whole turn of events.
Yeah.
But
okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, Councillor McLean would like to ask something, please.
Okay, so I don't mind who answers out of the supporters. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Chair. Could I, sorry, the developer who was on a second ago, could I just sort of ask him a little bit of background information again?
Yep, go ahead.
Where have you gone?
Hello.
You'll be out there somewhere. Hello.
Hello. Yeah, I'm here. Go ahead.
Right. I've listened very carefully to the presentations that have been put across. Everything's freezing up, isn't it?
Yep.
And I'm hearing an awful lot of emotion in people's voices. Now, I know emotion isn't planning, but what has been going on in the background of this in terms of a lack of communication with people? I wonder if Chair would allow me to ask that question.
Hello, I think you're muted, Councillor.
Sorry, it's just that sort of afternoon. I'm not sure it's a relevant planning question. Fiona, are we to get involved in emotions?
Chair, I've listened to a lot of what's been said, and I I don't really like to interrupt public speakers, but obviously a lot of what's been said has been emotive. It's not been related to planning. I think you're going to have the opportunity to hear later from the highways engineer for Hampshire County Council. Yeah. And I'm sure Julie would concur that ultimately this is a planning matter related to highway safety. And obviously I'm going to tell you that that's what you should be considering in making your decision. Thank you. So if you don't mind, Councillor McLean, thank you, Fiona. If you don't mind, Councillor McLean, I'm going to take the legal advice here.
All right.
So, anything, I'm going to go forward with the procedure as normal. So, Liz, as case officer, anything you want to pick up from what you've heard?
Not really, thank you, Chair. I've put as much as I can into my statement about the extent of the road and where the dip and the bend is. Yeah. And I don't really feel that there's much more I can add on those grounds.
Thank you. Could we just clarify the situation here? So there are 2 houses which already have permission. Is that correct?
No, there are 7 houses in total that have permission and have been substantially completed. So
yes, I visited the site from the outside, so I could see they were there. But could you just update me on the permission status of these 7 houses?
Yes, Chair. This application relates specifically to the first application on the site, which was for the demolition of a house and the building of 5 new houses, so 4 additional houses on that site. Subsequent to that application, a further application was submitted for 2 further houses to the south of the existing and also to use the same access. They all have consent.
Yes. Yes. So what I'm confused about, Liz, is the update sheet with condition 2 and 3 and 4.
Yes, that was my error, I'm afraid. Because this is a Section 73 application, all the original conditions that haven't already been discharged should have been added as a matter of course to this application, the compliance conditions, and they should have been included. I omitted to do that, so I added them to the update sheet.
I see. Okay. So yes, I'm going to, as per our legal advice, I'm going to now call upon Mr. Tom Fisher.
Chair, I'm so sorry, I don't mean to butt in, but Councillor McLean would like to ask a question for Liz, please.
No, I'll withdraw it.
Well, I'm going to come to questions to Liz later, if that's all right.
Thank you.
I'm going now to as this is primarily a highways application, I'm going to ask Mr. Tom Fisher, who's a senior transport planner from Hampshire County Council, who's come along this afternoon. Good afternoon, Mr. Fisher.
Good afternoon, Councillor.
I'm going to want to hear from him, questions to him, so that we can sort out this transport issue, because that's basically what the application is. Nothing else. Mr. Fisher, would you like to make a statement, or do you just want to answer questions?
I'll be happy to address some of the points that have already been raised, yes, and then answer questions on the back of that.
Useful.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. So it is my professional judgment, as well as the Highway Authority, that a 2-metre setback in this instance is considered appropriate. I am content that the specific characteristics of this site and the access is appropriate. That includes the provision of a footpath and the pedestrian usage, the fact that Hambledon Road is a bus route. The site is located adjacent to a housing area and there is an active housing frontage. The precedent of existing accesses along that road is evident, and as Councillor Clements has said previously, there haven't been any recorded accidents in the past 5 years in the vicinity of the access, and that includes the time which the construction vehicles have been accessing that site. In terms of the vegetation, without going into too much legal speak, the Highway Authority do have the ability to require and enforce vegetation trimming that is within public highway. Now, I agree that the hedge is in private ownership. However, the vegetation of that hedge does encroach onto public highway land, and therefore highway rights apply. I have been on site, and my on-site observation is that the visibility display of 2 meters by 43 can be achieved within highway land, and that in order to improve existing levels of visibility, we advised in our final formal response to the planning authority that it may be useful to trim the hedge. Again, I reiterate that that would only be within the extent of the public highway, although that would be a conclusion made by our local area office, who are responsible for the maintenance of that hedge, and they would only consider it to be in the interests of highway safety. I think those were the 2 main points. I just clarify as well in terms of this a point that Councillor Brooke raised. We don't consider the number of houses in terms of the respect to highways, and we look at it based on primarily some of the factors that I've already raised. I think that was the majority of the points, but obviously happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fisher. Thank you very much. So members, do we have any highway questions for Mr. Fisher?
Councillor Pearson, please, Chair.
Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Fisher, exactly what marks the boundary of highways? Is it the fence or is it the hedge?
We have established that it is or appears to be the centre point of the hedge, and that is included within the applicant's submission on the planning portal.
And is the fence actually at that point? I mean, was the fence there and the hedges overgrown it?
I can't say for certain. I think Liz had a picture of the fence and the hedge, but the highway boundary is to the centre line of the hedge, of which then the vegetation overhangs the public highway.
And the 30 sign, I presume, is on highway land, because that's embodied in the hedge as well.
That is correct, yes.
Right, okay. Thank you very much, Tom.
Councillor Leaming, Chair.
Okay, I was just going to ask Mr. Fisher, so does the highway have the authority to cut any of the hedge which is encroaching onto highway land?
Yes.
If it's for reasons of safety?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Leaming? Councillor Leaming?
Yeah. Oh, right. Sorry about that. I was having trouble getting the mic on. If the hedge was cut, would this then meet the requirement of the 2.4 metre?
That's not what's being proposed under this planning application.
Right.
It is primarily for the 2 metres. So unfortunately I can't answer that question.
I would have thought you would have been able to, because that's of primary importance, isn't it? Because we're looking at theoretically, because what will happen then if the hedge grows even more and comes out to give you less than 2 metres? That's where we've got to look at, surely.
So the Highway Authority are considering the proposals of a 2 metre setback, and the 2 metre setback is and the 2 metre by 43 visibility display will be all within public highway, and therefore we are content with the proposed visibility display of 2 metres by 43.
Yeah, what I'm really coming to is the fact that the highway authority goes up to the centre of the hedge, so therefore you're allowed to cut that back. That is allowed to be cut back legally to that point. The owner has a responsibility to do that, and therefore what would be the visibility display if that was in fact ensured?
I haven't got a plan which shows the full, the exact the exact setback of the highway boundary. However, as part of this planning application, I am only considering whether a 2 metre by 43 visibility display is acceptable, and it is.
Okay, I'm only looking at it from a public safety point of view and a bit of common sense.
Okay, any more questions, Vice Chair?
No, Chair, not at this time, thank you.
Anything else you want to tell us, Mr. Fisher?
No, that's all from me, unless there are other further questions.
Well, to just sum up then, the proposal, this application is solely about reducing the X distance for visibility displays, because all the rest is, I'm just reminding the committee about this, because the rest of it is all resolved issues. But so you don't feel that there's any problem in reducing the X distance to 2 metres, public safety?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you. There might just possibly be a few questions which would involve you, so if you'd like to stay with us, but
that's
turn
absolutely
your
fine.
microphone and video off. Thank you very much indeed. Councillor McLean, you had a question. I'm going to take questions on anything in the report. So, but just a reminder, we're just looking at the visibility displays being reduced to 2 metres.
I've already withdrawn my question, Chair.
Okay. Any other questions, Vice Chair?
Councillor Pearson, Chair, please.
Councillor Pearson.
Sorry, my name seems to be becoming too familiar. It is about visibility displays. May I query that when the planning application was originally granted, I presume visibility displays were an issue at that time as well. May I ask if the displays for that application, which I presume were 2.4, were deemed to be adequate at that time, and if they were, then quite clearly the 2 metre application must be perfectly safe. Am I correct in thinking that? I'm not sure whether Liz or Tom would answer that. I think it's Liz, actually.
Yeah, we'll start with Liz. Liz,
I mean, yes, certainly the 2.4 X distance was deemed to be acceptable at that stage, and hence the condition was put on to that effect to ensure that could be achieved, or well, to ask for that to secure it. Thank you. And so what we're looking at is, does the difference, bring it forward 0.4 metres, is that still capable of providing the level of highway safety that is required along this at this access? And you've heard that the highways view is that it is, and I am advised by them.
So 0.4 of a metre is what, 30 centimetres, isn't it?
40.
40 centimetres. Well, that's minimal. Okay, thanks, Liz.
Thank you. And could I just ask a rhetorical question? And I don't know who wants to answer it, Liz or Julie, but if we were to refuse this application to reduce the X distance and it went to appeal, would we be on very strong grounds, given that we've had the highway advice again this afternoon?
I wouldn't have thought so.
Julie, you want to come back here?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think it's always a tricky one to guide you in this respect. But Hampshire County Council are the highway authority. They're the statutory highway authority. They're the consultee on this case, and you've heard from them today that they don't have an objection to the reduction in this distance. And I think, you know, were we to find ourselves trying to defend that in the event of an appeal without the highway authority supporting us, it would be difficult to defend, in my view, Chair.
Yeah, it is, of course, highway safety that we are concerned with, but not appeals decisions and costs. But I just thought it should be a useful question to have in our minds. Any more questions, Vice Chair? Thank you, Julie.
Yes, Councillor Gordon-Smith, Chair.
Councillor Gordon-Smith?
Yes, I hope I'm not going to start a hair running, but I went to the site and I stood 2 meters back and 2.4 meters back, and from 2 meters you get a pretty good view up the hill to the left hand side. I mean, if I was driving a car, I wouldn't have any particular worries about looking in that direction, but looking to the right, the road curves and you have a much less of a distance, and there's hedgerows and shrubs in people's gardens. It's slightly difficult to gauge it because they've got this hoarding up, which cuts out a bit of your vision at the moment. It's obviously going to disappear, but that would be the distance that would worry, the view that would worry me. And of course, cars on that side of the road are going to be the first ones to hit you.
Yeah.
Can
Mr. Foster, would you like to comment on turning right out of the site in view of safety?
Mr. Fisher.
Mr. Fisher, I think, for the Highway Authority. Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Fisher.
That's all right. I've been called worse. The visibility to the right, you are correct. The hoardings there do obstruct the sort of on-site observations, but there has been a plan submitted to the planning or to support the planning application, which shows a suitable visibility slate to the right of again 2.4 by 43.
I mean, the plan is one thing, but the actual fact that there's shrubs there and all the rest of it, what actually, you said you had been to the site and had a look.
Yes.
Okay, fine, I would accept that then. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chairman, any further questions?
No more, Chair. Not at the time. This time, Chair. Thank you.
So I think then we're moving to debate. Any contributions to debate?
Yes, Chair. Councillor Pearson.
Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just looking again at the photographs on page 109, effectively the situation that Councillor Gordon-Smith was referring to. And I've got to say, when one looks at the view from the north, the whole of that hedge needs to be cut back because it's encroaching on the footpath. So whether you're talking about the distant hedge or whether you're talking about the near hedge, which is what the dispute is about, the same thing applies. I understand, I think the agent said that there had been a request to highways, or perhaps it's Mr. Clemenson, sorry, Councillor Clemenson said there had been a request to highways to indeed cut that hedge back if the landowners are negligible or won't do it. Other than that, if the original plans accepted 2.4, then quite clearly the 2 meter thing, especially with the professional advice, must be perfectly okay. So I'm going to support the officer's recommendation to this.
Okay, thank you. Any further contributions to debate?
Yes, Councillor Laming and then myself, please, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Laming.
Thank you. The original planning consent was for 2.4 metres. I cannot really see any reason why we should vary that because the applicant knew that that was what was required in the consent. Now, I'm sure that if the hedge was cut back, we would be a lot better off in the first place. We seem to be going around in ever decreasing circles. And I think it's up to the developer to actually conform to the consent.
Thank you. Councillor Clear.
Thank you, Chair. Well, we're actually here as the Planning Committee to concentrate on the matter of the 2-metre visibility display only. And personally, highways are fine with this application. They consider it is appropriate, and we've heard a lot of other matters going on today, but not really to do with planning. So I support this application, Chair.
Thank you. I too visited the site. I came from the left and went home via the right because I put the postcode in the sat-nav and it sent me all the way up to Soberton, and I came down Hambledon Lane, and interesting, but I didn't particularly like meeting other vehicles. It was so narrow. So I actually came to the site from one way and left from the other. I agree that, you know, the hedge needs to be trimmed back, but Hampshire Highways has the authority to do that, as we've heard from Mr. Fisher. And we have had expert advice today from a senior transport planner that he sees no problem in reducing the X distance down to visibility displays of 2 metres. And he is the expert. Hampshire County Council is our highways consultant. So if Hampshire Highways are saying there's no problem with going down to 2 metres, I don't think we are expert enough to disagree with that. And so, yes, I too will be supporting the application.
I have Councillor, sorry,
Mm-hmm.
Chair.
Yes, so I was going to ask you any more contributions.
Yeah. Councillor Bento, please.
Yes, Councillor Bento.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I do know this road. I drive along there quite a lot. That entrance looks like many entrances in my ward, everywhere. They cite seeing out of some roadways and some driveways is very restricted. Obviously, this while the building has been going on, there have been no reported accidents, and there must have been a number of cars and bigger vehicles moving in and out of the site. So I can only assume that the site there at Sightline is adequate as described by the experts. So I'm quite happy to support this one.
Thank you. Any more contributions for debate?
No, Chair, no more.
So this application has been recommended for approval, and it is just to reduce the X distance. I am still a little puzzled, Liz, as to why we've got conditions on the update sheet, but those are just part of the original permissions.
That's right, Chair. They should have been put on because they're the undischarged conditions from the original consent, so they are still valid.
I see, undischarged compliance conditions. Okay, so we're just reminding the applicant of that, probably.
Yes.
So, yeah. Dave, over to you to give the roll call for councillors to say their vote on this application.
Yes, thank you again, Chair. First of all, Councillor Clear.
Oh, 4.
Councillor Evans.
4.
Councillor Gordon-Smith.
4.
Councillor Laming.
Against.
Councillor McLean.
4.
Councillor Raffel.
4.
Councillor Bentote.
4.
Councillor Pearson.
4.
7 members for, 1 against, Chair.
So thank you very much. So that application is approved. And that concludes the business items for this afternoon. It's been a very interesting day with all the various problems we've had, but we have got through them. Thank you very much to the officers for all their support and certainly in sorting out the technical problems. Thank you to the members of the public who've come along, and thank you to the committee for their time. And that closes the afternoon session of the City Council Planning Committee for today.